Hey everybody, welcome to the 58th episode of Taps and Patience. I am AJ with Design the Everything, here with Harrison, who has a cat. Hi Harrison, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you doing, AJ?
I'm tired, but fine. Lots of family activities this weekend, and because of that, I was hoping to get a little bit of shop time in, at least come in, start some carabiners or something, but that did not happen. So
Fair enough.
that's where I am. Yeah,
That's how it goes.
I
So,
heard you had some power issues today.
man, we're getting down to the wire, and I've had about everything that can go wrong go wrong. Okay, bud. Okay, bud. If
If
you're gonna be like
Harrison
this,
sounds muted right now, it's because he just had a cat basically sit on his face.
yeah. Hang on. Let me get this guy down.
Just a little extra treat for the video viewers.
Yeah.
You can see the video on Spotify, by the way. I don't think you can
Yeah.
see it anywhere else.
That's one of our cats that is extremely lonely now that my wife is going back to work, and so he's
Oh,
home alone all day, and he was whining at the door before the podcast, and I was like, all right, if you be good, I'll let you in. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, no, a lot of crazy stuff going on today.
enlighten us.
So basically, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It's one of those days.
Yep.
Love those days.
Yeah.
So to start off, I got the fourth axis all wired in.
Woohoo.
So that was good. Got it tested and it's working good. So I'm happy with that. But when it came time to mount it, the Saunders adapter plate was supposed to be in, and it is in. But today is apparently a holiday, and so
Yep.
it was taken to the post office and locked behind a door that we cannot get to. They didn't put a key in the little box hole and say, "Hey, you can get it whenever you're around." Nope. It's one of those where they give you a little slip this time, and you have to go talk to someone. So that's annoying. So, anyways, that kind of threw a little bit of a wrench. One of my lights went out on the Tormach. So,
Oh, really? Like a work light?
like one of the LED lights, it's completely out. So, it actually flipped the breaker internally in the cabinet. And so, we got one of those on order. Actually, maybe two, just to have a backup after that. And then partway through the day, just a little bit before lunch, around 11, the power went out. And so basically there's a substation that's getting put in nearby, and I don't know this for sure, but not long after the power went out, like within 15 to 30 minutes, Dad was up there was coming to the shop, and he said he saw a bunch of them working on some power poles, and it looked like a tree branch or something had fallen onto one of the poles, and so he found it very suspicious that they were probably doing some work and knocked a tree over rather than coming out that fast to respond. So it was out for about 2 hours. Came on around 1 o'clock. So, which is annoying, but not the end of the world. And then had probe problems again.
Oh no.
So I called the guy from Zoom Speed. He's over in the United Kingdom. Called him last week, and so today we got a confirmation that he's sending us a new board. He
Oh,
thinks there
really?
might be
Okay.
a loose solder joint somewhere on the board, and he says it's cheaper and easier for him just to send a new board. I offered to send the old one back in case he wanted to try to diagnose it, and he says, I don't have anything for that. I don't care. Just toss it if it doesn't work. I said, okay. So we'll give it a shot, but if that does not work, I'm going Renishaw. So
I wonder if you could toaster oven the board, basically put it in a toaster oven at a low temperature to get the solder to reflow.
I'm not convinced that it's the solder joint, personally.
Yeah, yeah.
The board has been surprisingly unreliable. It's a combination of, it could be a solder joint, it could be water getting inside, it could be battery, there's like I've diagnosed so many different issues and tried to fix them that I feel like all of them could be contributing simultaneously, and that it's not any one of them. So I'm not sure.
At least you know mechanically it's sound because it's based on the Tormach probe,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
Tormach
Which
probe you knew worked.
although ironically, that's the thing that he said was probably wrong from the get
Yeah,
go,
of course.
and it's like I don't think so. Like all it is, and this is the thing that I don't know for sure, and I would be very interested to hear what anyone's opinion on this would be. But to the best of my knowledge, all the Tormach probe is just an open closed circuit. You're talking a
Yeah.
short or an open. That's it. Nothing in between. And what I don't know is sometimes the board will work and I can take a screwdriver and I can touch the two pins and basically manually short it out with that. Works fine. I plug it up to the probe, to the actual tip, and a few seconds later it stops working. And I don't know what's actually causing it. I've I've messed around with this so much that it's really hard to describe all the different things that I've tried. But I'm curious if there is any validity to anything going wrong with the actual probe itself. Like, besides a short or an open, which I believe is what it's supposed to be, I don't I don't feel like if it's supposed to be a shorted circuit whenever it's connected, like there's nothing worse that you can do to that to cause it to like backfeed into the board.
Unless it's confused by having like a high resistance short. That's the only thing I could think of. Or like vibration opening and closing it really fast.
I don't think so, but maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it is what it is. A weird trick that I finally got it to work today was I held the probe tip open to where it was an open circuit the whole time I was assembling it. And then when I let go of the tip, it worked.
Okay.
So when it was fully assembled, it didn't have an issue. I have no idea if this is like a placebo effect of I'd been messing with it for 30 minutes and it finally just decided to work, or if my doing that actually made a difference and why it mattered during the assembly process to have that as an open circuit, because it shouldn't. Because it hasn't malfunctioned since then. But once it seems like I have to fight it every day, and then once it starts working, it works all day, no problem.
Interesting.
Like very rarely do I have a problem once it starts working. But if it as it sits overnight and the next morning, it will never reconnect. So I'll always have to disassemble it. And it's always like a 20-30 minute game trying to figure out how to get the board put back together in a way that it doesn't error out while putting it back together.
Interesting. Man, and someone needs to start a competing company to these guys.
Yeah, and so I love having a probe in my machine that's wireless. Like, it is far too useful to ever remove. But man, it is very frustrating right now. So,
you know, there is probably a third option that none of us have considered, or at least recently. And that is to put the probe on its own little wine rack ATC and have it still be wired. And just have the machine come over, pick up the probe from its own little wine rack, and then use it and then put it back without ever turning it.
Yeah.
Obviously there's challenges there, like how does the machine know where the wine rack is when it needs to do the tool change, and
how do you keep space?
How do you keep the taper clean and all that stuff?
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, but
so yeah,
at this point I feel like that would be easier to solve.
Yeah, I feel like, and I don't know this for sure, but my gut is telling me that the amount of flood coolant that we are now adding into the system and how misty it is the majority of the problem. Because anytime I open it up in the morning, there's moisture on the inside of the circuit board. And during the day when it's running, I think it's staying warm enough that it's not solidifying. So that's my running theory. And that's also the theory I have with like the lights and whatnot, is because we're running this thing so hot and heavy all day, and it's just misting all over on the inside. That with the amount of flood coolant we have with the new hose and the new coolant ring, and how misty it's getting inside, I think we're finding all of the shortcomings in the Tormach's electrical system for water, not specifically the Tormach, but for the probe and potentially for the light.
How
And
much
so,
mist do you have in there? Like, can you see a fog, or is it just like
yeah,
sprays?
it's like a fog.
Hmm. I don't know if I get that as much as you do.
Probably not. I filled up the chip bin multiple times with stainless here in the last few days, so I'm running
Yeah,
a lot of.
my
A,
machine runs a lot though.
it runs a lot, but I have a face mill that basically atomizes it.
Oh yeah, that'll make a difference. Yeah,
So I have.
I noticed a difference in mist when I use those ER25 tool holders I have from Haas, because
Mhm.
they have the castle nut style lock nut on the collets, or the collet nut,
Mhm.
and my other ones have a hexagon. And I think just there being more edges, and also the larger nut gets in the way of the coolant more, and it makes a lot more mist than my smaller ones.
Yeah. Yeah, so my theory is that my 2-inch face mill, I'm pumping so much more coolant through it that it just, when it comes in, it just atomizes all the coolant.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I lose, I have to add about a gallon to a gallon and a half of water every day,
Yeah, I'm in the same range.
maybe more. I don't know. It's always running low. It's always 3/4 full or less the next
I
morning.
so I also have the problem where there is a very specific range on my machine where if I overfill it, the machine will overflow, and if I underfill it, the pump's not happy. So
Yep,
I'm always playing around this like 1 gallon range.
that's kind of where I'm at too. So I'm always adding water to it.
Yeah.
So I pretty much add water to it 2 or 3 times a day.
Yep. Same.
So, but that's amazing that if you're not misting as much as I am, that you're still using the same amount of water.
Yeah. It may just present well. Okay. Partially, I think I have more leaks than you do. I bet. It also may
Oh,
just
okay,
present itself differently, because it may be like a finer mist in my machine or something, and a looser mist in your machine.
could
Or we
be.
may even have different issues with like climate control, where my building is probably drier than yours, I would imagine, because I have air
Yeah, it's
conditioning.
well, I have air conditioning too, but Arkansas is just really humid in general.
Yeah.
So,
Indiana has its moments, but lately it hasn't been humid.
so, anyways, that being said, just Tormach fun.
Yep.
Excited to play around with the fourth axis for the first time. Got a lot of parts that I need to use. I was planning on, before I got the fourth axis, we were going to use a 5C collet, collet block, and just manually flip them.
Mm-hmm.
But we looked at how many parts we had to do and determined that a fourth axis would be very beneficial for the amount that we were doing.
What work holding are you using on your micro arc?
ER40, I think is what it is.
ER40. Okay.
So I'd like to get a small fifth axis vise or something similar.
So
Um,
Kowalski CNC, or Kowalski Precision rather, they make the Saunders Machine Works compatible vice stop that I use. He also has a micro arc adapter for a fifth axis dovetail vice, and it's very, very reasonably priced, unlike the fifth axis dovetail vice.
Gotcha. I'll have to look
So
at that.
that's what I would have done if I used my micro arc more.
Yeah, because I would like to start. There's enough parts that I do that have some pretty that get hit on a lot of different sides that a fourth axis would just make sense for.
Yeah.
Like
I
there's
think his
part.
adapter was like $120 or something, and then the vice was like 300, just for a small dovetail vice. Which I guess in the grand scheme of 5-axis vices isn't that expensive, but
Yeah, fair. But anyways, so we'll see. I would like to start playing around with more 5-axis stuff, or not 5-axis, 4-axis stuff. as I'm preparing to potentially go 5-axis in the near future. So we'll see.
Yep.
So beyond that, man, these next 2 weeks, I'm going to live at the shop, I think.
Got those big orders still rolling through?
Yeah. Yeah, we've got, so we do everything by types. Now, grant, we got a whole bunch of types that are done, but the last time I checked, we had 57 types in 10 days. So we have to average like 5 types a day.
Yeah.
And we got like 2 done today. So, yeah.
So that's like at bare minimum 10 setups a day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's some work.
Yeah. So I'm trying to bunch all similar type parts to reduce setups as much as possible. And we got another PO for parts that are due sooner from our favorite customer.
Yeah.
So we're just like gonna die. I think I've just settled that we're just gonna die. It's exciting, but it is stressful, and I am ready for this date to come and go, and for us to be done with everything, and just have like a small breather for a day or two.
Yep. Can I interest you in a Tormach 1100 MX?
Potentially.
Oh, really?
I don't know. We'll see. I really want to get another machine, but I'm happy with my Tormach. I would probably take another one at some point, except for I can't spend any money right now because I'm saving up for a big boy machine. But I could see another Tormach in my future potentially if the right deal came along. Just because of, for the right types of parts, it doesn't make sense to tie up a really expensive machine for smaller parts. And so if I do get a big boy machine, one thing I've noticed as a common trend with a lot of companies as they grow is they are always trying to find time to fit in smaller work on their bigger machines. And having a couple different smaller machines that I can run parts on and basically have excess capacity or rush capacity on at all times makes a ton of sense for me.
Yeah. Well, so let's say you have a machine that makes $1,000 an hour, and that machine makes good parts really fast. But then you have a part that comes along, and just by the nature of the part, that part is a $500 an hour part. So yes, by having that machine running $500 an hour, you're still making money. You're making $500 an hour. But if you could put that $500 an hour part on a Tormach and make $200 an hour on that Tormach, then you can still be making $1,000 an hour on your other machine.
Exactly.
Opportunity cost.
Exactly. One thing that I'm setting up my Tormach so that someday I can put a robot that's more expensive than it in front of it. Because it'd be really cool to, if I do end up getting a UR robot and putting it in front of like a big vertical machining center, and it is really successful, and then I end up wanting to automate more things, I could see putting a vice or a robot in front of a Tormach and doing stock prep to save ops on the bigger machines, and to just set it up as either like a dovetail machine or just a material prep, like doing work on to remove material that's non-critical, just to reduce cycle time on the other machines. I could see it doing stuff like that real easy, and just basically feed stock to other machines.
Yeah. So with my new mill, like so let's say you were in my shoes, you got this new, little Haas LM2 showing up. Would you plan on automating that before buying another mill?
I would take a good look at your product stack, and I would focus on setup reduction, whatever that means.
Okay.
That's been the number one problem in my area. but that's on the job shot side. For production side, I think setup makes a big difference there too. I could see a robot for that, but you'd have to, with your products though,
They're very
you'd almost,
unautomatable
unless you palletize them somehow.
unless I did pallets. Yeah,
I
that's
could
true.
see I could see one of two things. Let's see, that machine is so small. Automating it would be very hard from a robot perspective. If you could, I would almost. We already looked. You can't fit a fourth axis in there, can you?
You can, just not a large one.
See, I would almost look at doing a tombstone fourth axis.
Mm-hmm. That would make sense.
And because that would give you the most real estate usage. And because a lot of your parts are really short, you could basically quadruple your table space. And if you did it right, you could palletize that in such a way that you would rotate and swap out pallets. So you could have 4 pallets that you're changing in and out. So you could be running 4 different products if you needed to, or 4 pallets of the same product. I think that honestly makes the most sense for a machine of your size, is to not automate it in a sense of a robot, but do a fourth axis tombstone where you can run 4 different tombstones in one go. And
Yeah,
that'll give you insane flexibility and capacity all at the same level. And I would probably put that on like a rock lock or some kind of quick change. That way you could take the tombstone out and you could use it as a regular machine for prototyping if you needed to, if that was your only machine. Or alternatively, if you had enough Z height, I would have one pallet set up like a Saunders plate that you could run all your Saunders stuff through if you needed to. But I don't know if you have enough Z height to do that.
I don't remember the spec off the top of my head. But yeah, I think it's kind of where I was going. I don't think a robot's the best way for me to go right now. But I just need a quick change system of some sort. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
a better
I think
0 point than, the Saunders plate is.
yeah. Yeah, the Saunders is an awesome option, but for a machine of that small size, I think if you dedicated a quick change system, you'd have more repeatability and quicker turnover. And because the machine is so small, I don't feel like the Saunders stuff is going to gain you very much because their claim to fame is you can hold any part of any size
Mm-hmm.
by spreading out your jaws, but because your work area is so small, that doesn't gain you much on that machine. So
Yeah. I did buy the fixture plate, but again, it's because I want to be able to run that machine when it gets here. And the alternative is buying some new fixturing system. And so it was
yeah,
easier just to grab the Saunders plate and slap it on.
yeah, but
Uh,
that's probably my suggestion. There was, if you look at that video from, oh, what's his name? VC Edge.
mm-hmm,
He made a fourth axis tombstone for the micro art for knife
mm-hmm.
products. Something along that route, I could see benefiting you greatly. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. And that would be a good use for like a Lang fixture or a flux puck or something along those lines.
Yeah, and if you did your fourth axis and you had a quick change to it, you could throw a self centering vise on it, and you could do 4 axis work. So I was looking at that system for the Tormach because I could either throw a Tombstone for the micro arc, I could throw on an ER40, or I could throw on a self centering vise,
Mm-hmm.
all with the quick change and relatively quick turnover if I needed to.
Do you know, is there anybody making tombstones for that thing and like selling them?
The micro arc?
Yeah.
Not that I know of.
Hmm. Someone should
But
make those.
yeah, it's another good idea. Hey, bud.
There was a short period in time where Design the Everything sold tombstones,
Oh, really?
but they were for the Pocket NC.
Gotcha.
I had Cerven Solutions, because the problem with the Pocket NC is they're not big enough to make the tombstone. So I had Cerven Solutions do some of the machining that I couldn't fit on there, and then I had some laser cut bases made and did some minor machining on those and just assembled it and sold them. And I don't know, people liked them. It wasn't a huge market, but the people who liked them liked them.
Yeah, I think a tombstone for smaller machines could be a big hit, and I don't really think there's very much in the market right now.
Yeah, I think I think that is a very niche market, though.
It is, but it also is kind of fun to experiment in that area because a lot of guys that are starting out in that space, instead of going up to a bigger machine, that could be a really easy way to unlock potential for much less money. So I don't know. It's interesting. I like the idea a lot.
Yeah, they wouldn't have to be that expensive. It's basically just a big chunk of aluminum on some sort of mounting plate,
Yeah, unless you had some sort of quick change.
unless you added some sort of quick change.
But if you don't add the quick change, no, it's not expensive at all. But anyways, no, that's a good idea. Yeah, we'll see. I want to the better utilization I can get out of the Tormach. I'm basically experimenting as much as I can to increase productivity in different ways and to automate it as much as I can in preparation for a bigger machine. So any step I can take right now that is reducing setup time and speeding things up, one makes that machine far more productive than it has been in the past. I can pump out a lot more parts on it than I have in the past. But also, it's good practice for a bigger machine. Um, so I like that a lot. And I'm trying to do more infusion to template things and speed up my programming time. So
Did did you see the series of Instagram stories of the woes of my production fixture for the fidget cubes?
I glanced at a couple of them, but I did not catch the full story.
Okay, so basically the story is it don't work.
Okay.
My clamps were not clampy enough
Okay.
for a couple of reasons, I think. Background to everybody listening. So I've sold a product that's these fidget cubes. They are cubes that are just under an inch on all sides because they're a cube, and they have engraving on all sides. So I need to have a fixture where I can get to every single side of the cube. I have 3 cubes on a pallet, and then each cube has 6 different stations. So the pallet has a total of 18 different stations. Sometimes I'm clamping on finished material, sometimes I'm clamping on the raw material. So I made some custom clamps. They were just like ones that I'd used on a different fixture. The geometry was almost exactly the same on the actual clamping action, just the shape of the clamp was different. But basically, I did the same thing that Saunders does on his mod vices, where I had a cone on my clamp that fit into a flathead screw. When you tighten the flathead screw, the cone tries to center itself, and if you put the part in the way so the cone can't center itself, the screw will move the clamp into your material and create your work holding force. Worked really, really, really well last time I did it. This time I was running into a couple strange issues where one, if I, well, the problem at the end of the day was there was not enough work holding force. And it seemed to be friction based, my problems, where even if there was no part in the way and you tighten the screw all the way down or as much as you could, the clamp would not move enough to be at its full clamping position. It would stop short.
What angle of screw were you using? Like what was the included angle on the?
It's 90 or 82 and a half, rather.
Okay.
Oh, which actually, now I think about it, my chamfer was definitely 90 because that's what my chamfer mill is. So I guess there is a slight mismatch, but I don't think that would hurt anything.
Well, for one, I would try to match that taper to spread out that load.
That's true.
And two, I would choose 82 is good. The steeper that taper, the more force it'll have to self-center because it's closer to a straight circle, not a
Yeah,
cone.
it's just a standard flathead screw, though. I'm not making custom
So
ones.
well, yeah, I know. So 82 is probably the best you can get
Yeah.
because there's 82, 190. Those are kind of the three common sizes. So 82 is probably the best for your application.
Yeah. I played with lubricating both the screw and the bottom of the clamp, and that actually did make a pretty big difference. I tried changing the geometry of the clamp, and I came up with some things that were better. But as soon as I started cutting, it would pull the part out. I
How are you machining your clamps? Are you machining them in fixture or out of fixture?
Salami slice out of fixture.
Okay. Okay. How
What I
much? Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So I played with different geometries. I took them to my belt grinder and I ground off the bottom of them so they were only contacting at the top. I put in a little relief in the middle so they were only contacting on 2 points. And all of these things helped, but didn't solve the problem. So what I ended up doing, and I don't know if this works yet, obviously, but I ordered steel to replace the aluminum clamps because I think part of my problem is I have aluminum sliding on aluminum, and that screw is steel on aluminum, and all of those are fairly high friction sources. So if I have the steel on aluminum for the base where it's sliding, and then steel on steel for the screw, I think that'll help a lot. And then also I'm changing from a 440 screw to a number 8 screw, an 832.
Okay.
And I should be able to get a lot more torque on those screws without breaking them or stripping out the threads. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's enough because the 440 screws, it was so close to working, but not quite there.
Yeah, 440 is definitely a little on the small side for that.
Yeah, and then I got 1045 steel, so if I really wanted to, I could even heat treat it.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I
that
may
sounds like you're
do
on
it
the
for
right
fun.
track. Nothing, nothing too crazy there that I think stands out as like a thing I would suggest. Other than matching your taper angle,
Yes, I'll do
if
that.
if
You're
if
right.
it's different, if it's not matching, because what that can do is that can cause, depending on where it's hitting at the bottom or at the top, and with your screw being 82 and that being a 90, I bet it's only grabbing at the base. If you're at a 90 and your screw's at an 82, you're only going to be grabbing at the very center.
You're
And so the
correct.
and so
Yeah.
the ability for it to rotate up is going to be easier.
Hmm.
If you wanted to do it
That's a good
anyway,
point.
you if you did it the other way, where you had a 90 going into an 82 tapered, at least it would be grabbing at the very top edge, which would give it hopefully more leverage to keep it from picking up.
Yep. Yeah. I
So,
don't. Let's see. I don't think it was failing by picking up. I think it was failing by just sliding the material vertically.
oh, another question I was going to ask: how far does the clamp move to be centered? Like how offset is it?
Let's see. I did do a revision to actually make it less. I think my first ones had like the ability of 100 thou of travel. I think my later revisions were 50 thou travel.
Okay,
I don't remember actually. It could have been. I don't remember if they were 100 thou included or like in each direction.
and then another good question is how long were your screws going into your base material? Because not only are you trying to pull it down, but your materials are if your screw's too short, it could actually rotate in the aluminum base, even if it's got plenty of holding force.
I can tell you that the screw breaks before it strips the threads. It's at least a quarter inch in there. It might be 3/8.
Okay,
With a 440 screw, that's a lot of engagement.
that is, but that's not a lot of height. So even if that's a lot of engagement for the diameter size, that's not a lot of height if you were to pinch onto it on a vise and try to push it over. if that makes sense.
Yes, the clamping element is, I believe, 300 thou tall.
Okay. That's not too bad. That's
Yeah.
not too tall.
It's about a third of the way up the cube.
So, anyways, a lot of fun. Fixturing is fun.
Yeah.
Fixturing is one of the many challenges that one faces.
It was such a nice looking fixture, and it was very disappointing when it didn't work.
Are you worried about damaging anything switching up your materials? If you're clamping on pre-machined stuff?
That is definitely a risk. I may keep the clamps that are clamping onto a finished face. I may keep those aluminum and just do the bigger screws. I believe I have arranged it so there's either one or two operations where I'm not clamping on raw material. Because I thought about that when I laid out the orientations.
Yeah.
So maybe I do just do the same clamps that I'm about to do, the redesigned clamps, but out of aluminum, and then reduce my roughing speeds and feeds on those ones as definitely an option.
Yeah.
So on the last episode, we didn't talk about my tooling, did we, in the tests that I was doing with these?
You mentioned your tooling, but I don't think we talked about any of the tests you did with them.
So I did some tests with the 1/4 end mill, just in aluminum. I need to try some other materials. And I was kind of blown away with them. I also kind of reinvented like why tools are the way they are. Like it kind of like you go through the logic of a tool like this, and you kind of are like, oh, actually a 3-flue end mill for the kind of machines that we're running makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
But these tools aren't designed for the machines that we're running. They're designed for smaller machines. Basically, I'm starting again, background for audience. I'm starting a new tooling brand where I'm having some kind of quirky custom made tooling made for me that I will be reselling. And it's things that they do exist out there. Like it is something you can get, but you have to get them from like Harvey Tools or Datron, and they're like $100 each plus. But they're tools that work really, really well, or the theory is they work really, really well on small, lightweight machines like a Shapeoko or a Nomad or a Pocket NC or a Bantam Tools mill. I don't know what they call theirs, the Bantam, whatever that is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or, what's the 3D printed? A mostly printed CNC. Like it's kind of designed for those machines. And they are very stubby single flute tools that have a relieved shank section. I don't actually have one of those machines, which, if this becomes a large part of my business, is something I will have to remedy. But I was doing some tests on my Tormach, and with the 1/4 inch tool, I'm not sure I could break that tool if I was cutting less than a 100% depth of cut on the flutes. I did not try a full slot at full depth. I should have, but I didn't want to break my tool because I only have the one sample of that size on hand right now. I've sent everything else out for testing to friends and other people I know on Instagram. But at one point, I was taking a 10 thou depth of cut, a 10 thou feed per tooth at, I believe, an 1/8 inch depth of cut. And the tool didn't even notice.
Full slot?
I don't think that was full slot. That was an adaptive toolpath.
Okay.
But basically, I don't think I could feed the feed rate fast enough on this machine for it to really cause issues. Because those single flutes have so much room in there. There's not a like a central spine like there is on like a 2 or 3 flute.
Oh, yeah.
So you can take really, really, really big step overs, and the tool doesn't really care.
That's cool.
Another fun fact about single flutes is they don't really care about the run out of your spindle.
Yeah.
It just changes the effective diameter of your tool. It doesn't have like the weird, like engaging only one flute effects that it has on a multiple flute tool. That being said, I did find some downsides. First of all, on my machine, which does not have like the same RPM as one of those like a Nomad would have, it's kind of limited in material removal rate. Even at full depth of cut and a very healthy step over, you're not going to get that high of a material removal rate because you just can't, like, even at a 10 thou feet per tooth, you're still only going like, I don't know, was that 100 inches a minute or something with a 1/4 inch depth of cut? Like, it's just not, it's not that much material being bitten off. And then I was like, oh, well, what if I made one of these with 2 or 3 flutes? And it's like, oh, this is just a normal end mill. But again, these aren't designed for my machine. I did find that I think it was because the flutes are so stubby. The stubby flutes were not a huge fan of chip clearing if you were taking aggressive cuts. So I tried slotting. I think I did a 50 thou depth. Did I do? Maybe it was 100 thou depth of cut. 100 thou depth of cut, 5 inches per tooth, full slot. And the first pass where the flutes were still above the surface was perfect. No problem at all. Tool didn't notice, machine didn't notice. But as soon as it got past the 1/4 inch depth, there was like some really strange chip welding and rubbing that was happening. And I ended up with a ring of aluminum welded to the top of the tool around the shank.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried like a boring operation where I was boring I think it was a 3/8 inch tool, or excuse me, a 3/8 inch hole with the 1/4 inch tool. And that also caused a bunch of like rubbing and chip welding. And I wasn't using any coolant or air blast on this. I think that would have solved these issues, but smaller machines don't have that. So I was able to get both those cuts to work by slowing it way down. By going to like 3 thou feet per tooth, the chips were a lot smaller, and so they were able to get out.
Gotcha.
But I don't think no matter what you do, it's not going to be an ideal tool for like slotting or a tight bore. But if you just wanted to remove material in like an adaptive operation, I think you'd have a really hard time beating it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I have made some design changes to the tool itself that I'm going to get in the next batch. Where this tool here, that it has a 10 thou relieved shank on it. I've changed it to be 10 thou. It was 10 thou across my 1/8 inch, my 3/16, and my 1/4 inch tool. Now the shank is going to be 90% of the cutting diameter. So that's about 25. Well, that's exactly 25 thou reduced from the 1/4 inch tool. And I think that'll give it some more room for chips to clear and solve that issue.
I like it. Well, that's exciting.
I'm having a lot of fun with this. I started working on the website. I'm just going to put it on the Design the Everything website, but in the future, I'm going to section it off. But a Shopify website costs like $40 a month or something. I don't want to do that $40 a month on an experiment.
You know what I just realized?
What's that?
I might have a problem with specializing into a niche, but you have a problem with spinning off more companies.
Yes, I do. Yep. I am aware.
I might not have my niche, but you're about to have 3 niches.
Yeah. Desks, keychains, and tooling.
Or maybe 4. Better desks, better keychains, the Design the Everything, and
yeah.
and tooling.
I honestly hope tooling takes off more. I would much rather go in that direction if I could. There's a couple good arguments for it as a product line. One being that tools break, and especially with hobbyists. And so there could be reoccurring sales, even if they're not like because the tool is breaking. It could be like the they come in, they buy an 1/8 inch end mill, and then they go, oh, I want a 1/4 inch one, and they come back. It doesn't happen a whole lot with my stuff, at least right now, because a lot of it is pretty similar.
Yeah, a lot of your products are kind of a one and done.
Yeah. So the tooling line can have some. It's a consumable. and so I can get some repeat sales there. The other nice thing is, so when my OM gets here, these tools will be really good for it. And so my
That's
plan is to
true.
use all of my own tools for my production work on that machine, or as many as possible. And
That's a good idea.
one, it makes my end mills really cheap. Two, I can find issues with my tooling and fix them from my own usage. Three,
Hmm.
it's a marketing thing because I can be like, look, see, I use them.
There you go. I like it.
So and then I ordered some more samples. I ordered samples for a single flute extended stub ball mill, basically exactly the same as this tool, but ball mill, and a extended version of this, so it'll have a 8D depth of cut.
Oh wow, that's a long reach.
It is a long reach. I swear there was something else I've ordered, but I'm blanking on what it was. I don't remember. I know I ordered. Well, maybe it was just those two. I thought about ordering some bold noses, but I don't think I ever did. So that'll put my total investment in this up to like $400. So, and then I I don't know. Once I get testing back, I think I'm going to order my bulk buy. Oh, and I'm waiting for another company. So there was another. I went to two suppliers in China, and I
Hmm.
both had them both send me samples. One of them showed up. One of them was the wrong package from the other company, and so now some other company has my tools, and I have some other company's tools, and they are resending me the right tools. And I want to test the tools from the other company.
And compare.
The first company, much better communication. They sent me the right thing, at the right time to the right place. Their tools are about twice as expensive, and the person, like, they seem much less knowledgeable. The other company, much more knowledgeable, much more difficult to communicate with, and also they sent my tools to the wrong place. So that's a fun
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. Hmm.
Should I buy and resell some just like jelly bean tools, like a standard two flute and a standard two flute ball nose? And
I would wait to see where your customer base is and what your customer base wants before you start investing in anything. I would not rule it out. I would say personally, not as a hobbyist, but that someone who has kind of moved from the hobby stage into the professional area. At least that's what I tell myself. That when it comes to tooling, I will pay more for a better tool rather than pay less just because I can have multiples of them on hand. That's kind of the direction I'm trending. And so by keeping with your own products that are solving an issue, I feel like if you start diluting that with other products that are just jelly bean parts, it kind of goes back to that whole niche specializing thing
mm-hmm.
that people won't take you quite as seriously or take your own products quite as seriously. That's just my gut feeling on that. And so if you have tools that are filling a particular niche and you're trying to make them the best in that area, I would not mix that in with jelly bean parts.
So if I'm going to be the weird tooling guy, be the weird tooling guy.
Yes,
Okay,
own it.
I'm on board with that.
That would be my advice. If you wanted to, I don't know, bring up another one, let's say
Brand number 5.
brand number 5, then you could do that. But you need to have some kind of differentiator in that. Even if you did sell them under the same company, if you could find a way to market Jelly Bean tools versus in-house tools,
mm-hmm.
and find a way to separate that in such a way that people know what they're getting in both categories, like, hey, these are parts I'm just reselling versus, hey, these are ones that I'm designing to fit a very particular need and niche. Maybe at that point, maybe, but I still feel like you're going to be diluting that brand in some ways.
That's fair. And there's probably better versions of Jelly Bean tools for smaller machines. Like, for example, every time you buy an 1/8" end mill off of like Amazon or whatever, they're always like 6x D cuts, like lengths of cuts, or at least 4D.
Mm-hmm.
And that just doesn't matter on those machines. So
Yeah.
maybe like a 2x D
Yeah.
version or something like that.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I feel like the more weird you can go, I mean, it's just like what Harvey's done.
yeah.
They specialize in the unique, and I find myself going to their website all the time. I need something unique. And so if you can become that unique service for those types of people, that'll be how you grow that versus being the jelly bean supplier.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm on board with that. Yeah. Let's see. The other thing I want to do is make some like super glue fixtures. I feel like that works well with that market. And that'll work really well on the new mill when it gets here. Just like the one. Have you seen my super glue fixture?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so it's a Saunders pallet, and I put in a series of dowels of dowel holes where I can put in a precision dowel, and then I have a grid of fine grooves on there. I think I did 1/16. I'd probably go thinner on a production model, but basically the grooves help you get the tape and the part very flat. The pins help you locate the part, or at very least line it up. And it just gives you it's easier to get parts glued to that than just to like a block of aluminum.
So you're still putting the tape down, doing the double tape method.
Yes. Yep, you're still doing the double tape method, but it's just a better surface for it. It gives you more grip on the tape and on the super glue, and gives you flatter parts.
Really? So you're machining a pattern into it, and that gives you more grip?
Yes.
I feel like with tape, like you want a flat surface.
So the problem you run into is you trap air bubbles, and also there's less like corners for things to grip on. And by having thin grooves in there, the air bubbles and any like debris and stuff, they get pushed into the grooves.
Gotcha.
Or if you had, like, let's say you had a blob of super glue that, or even better yet, let's say you had a chip that was between your parts that you were super gluing together. If there was nowhere for that to go, you just end up with a high spot, which would reduce your glue contact area.
Mm-hmm.
But by having those grooves, that chip can get pushed down into a groove instead, which means you get more surface area contact.
That's fair. Interesting. Yeah. It'd be interesting. The biggest problem with the super glue technique, in my
Is the
opinion,
tape and the super glue?
well, it's how long it takes to set up. So I wonder if you could palletize the super glue setup
You
and
could.
make it a lot faster.
Do you use the accelerator?
I've tried. I have had very poor success with it.
Really? Oh, well, there's your problem. The accelerator not only makes it faster, but it also makes the glue stronger.
Yeah, I've tried a couple times, and it could be the accelerator that I got. For one thing, it does not like to stay in the bottle. I don't know why.
Do you
But
have like the squirty squirty kind or the aerosol kind?
squirty squirty.
Oh, the aerosol kind's the way to go.
Oh, okay, that could be my problem.
And are you spraying the super glue and then trying to get it put on there quickly? Or do you put super glue on one part and then spray the other part?
Honestly, I haven't done it in so long I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I think I tried to put the super glue on one part, spray the other part, and then when I stuck the two together, it hardened so fast that I couldn't get anything aligned or.
And this is why you have dowel pins on the fixture.
So, but to be fair,
Yes.
since I've gotten a vacuum
I've been
plate,
through those pains.
Since I've gotten a vacuum plate, I almost never do the super glue method anymore.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the vacuum plate, I would prefer going back to the super glue method on some stuff because of the fact that I can machine all the way through it. I don't have to worry about losing vacuum.
Mm-hmm. I was fully prepared to go to super glue method for blanking out my carabiners. But then I was talking to Fidget Things and convinced him to water jet cut my blanks for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
He's got that little Protomax water jet,
does.
doesn't he?
Yep.
Hmm.
I asked my least favorite water jet place that's local to me. I've worked with them at my old job, and they were always the worst. Um, and I got a quote from them because they're close by, and it was I think $7 a part just for the water jet, not including materials.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that's not sustainable for this product. But Fidget Things came in at about $4 a part,
That's nice.
which I think is cheaper in the long run than breaking tools and scrapping carabiners and all the things that happened with trying to cut them out from plate.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot cheaper
What
than
about
replacing the spindle on the OM if something goes wrong.
what about work holding? Have you figured out that side of it yet?
So I don't think I will need to change anything, at least right off the bat. The blanks are going to come with 2 holes in them in the center, and I will, locate the blanks onto the pallet. I will use those 2 center holes to get them, fairly roughly lined up and secured down. Then the first thing that's going to happen is the mill will come in and drill some more holes for work holding, like on the actual carabiner itself. I'll put in more screws and then finish machining the rest of it, just like I do now.
Okay.
So, but this means I don't have to slot the outside. I can just, finish past the outside. That does beg the question, how much of the material do I remove from the center? Right? Like I could just slot it out again, or I could adaptive like a 1/4 inch channel or something around the outside and do a full finish pass.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
might
I
be
don't
the
know.
safer option.
Yeah, those carabiners are definitely a unique challenge.
Yeah.
For work holding, have you ever thought about trying to do kind of what you're doing now with the dice and the other things, where you have a pocket that so you've tried pocket sticking them down into a pocket whenever you were doing them through send cut send.
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought about machining, like when you get them water jet, doing the whole outer profile and then having a pocket that you stick them into, and then having some ID expansion clamps that are pushed to the inside or something? I don't know if I'm making sense there or not.
I think that would be hard to machine the whole profile then, because I want to machine the whole outer edge.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying you do that first when you have holes in the middle.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, sure. I don't see why that wouldn't work. It wouldn't be hard to do as part of my op too. I have found it works a lot better to machine them when there's no lateral forces on the carabiners.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, things get squished and chamfers come out off
Wonky.
or looking wonky. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I didn't know if you had a precision OD that you machined, if that would make a difference for that. Because I like that method you had, except for you're going off of a laser cut edge. But if
Mm-hmm.
you machine it, I think that gets rid of that problem. But I don't know.
Yes. I don't know. It's a possibility. I'm sure there's a lot of ways to skin a cat
Skin a
or whatever
cat.
that phrase is. Yeah. You
Yeah.
have a cat. Let's never mind.
I have a couple.
Yeah.
We could
We
we
had a
could
couple
practice.
tries.
If we can practice.
uh,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
let's see. The only other thing going on right now is the new mill gets here in exactly a week. The truck is scheduled. I have a forklift scheduled to be delivered that morning. I changed my mind on how I'm arranging everything earlier today. And now I need to rearrange the whole shop and clean stuff out. I did some fierce negotiations with my wife to get her plants out of my shop, which are the single biggest source of mess in the whole shop. And so that opens up quite a bit of space. I am consolidating I have like my house kind of tools in here, and those are going away. Like my table saw's in here. I don't need a table saw for design the everything. So that's going to the garage along with a bunch of other stuff. And I'm basically gaining probably a third, maybe a quarter more square footage, which I don't really need. But that other stuff was just kind of perpetually a mess, and it drove me insane just because it existed, even if it didn't really affect me.
Yeah.
It
Well,
just it
go ahead.
go on.
I was just gonna say, as you clear things up, it declutters your mind and allows you to work
Yes.
better. we've had a gentleman who's come in and he wanted some laser work done, and he would just come and sit in the corner and work on his computer. And it wasn't like he was taking up any valuable space, but the amount of mental real estate he was taking up was insane. Because we were working on his parts, and so you're kind of constantly like trying to be on edge and be the good business person and whatnot. And like today when he came by, I was like, listen, like you can come in for a few minutes and tell us what you want to do, but you can't hang out here all day. Like we got work that needs to be done. You being here is a distraction, even if you're just sitting in the corner. Yeah, it's being able to set.
I was gonna say that's how it was for me when my dad was working on the powder coat booth. Because my dad built us this powder coat booth. It is super nice. It is super awesome. I'm very thankful for it. But it took him like at least 3 weeks where he was in the shop, multiple days a week. And it was just so distracting for me. And I had a really hard time getting work done and focusing. And it was like, it took him a long time.
Yeah, it's not so much the physical space or the fact that like they're not doing anything to physically disrupt you, but the mental slowdown from having unexpected people in the shop and the mental space that takes up is insane. And so like we're getting very protective of the space and just, it's nice to have people come in, but when people come in, we get no work done. So it's like, come in, drop off your stuff, go. Like, we got work to do. Get out of here. We appreciate all of you guys, but we need our space. So,
yeah. So, anyway, I went to the hardware store today and I bought a countertop, a bench top, and 24 2x4s. And between that and some like scrap plywood and stuff I have laying around, I'm going to build some shelves and rearrange some shelves and build a workbench for the new mill when it gets here, and all those things.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to give a shop update as well. Guy is clearing out his stuff.
Nice.
And I was in there on Sunday, and I took a little video, and I won't show it, but it looks like 70 to 80% of the stuff is gone. So we're getting closer.
Yeah, that's huge.
So it was a big chunk. There's a big empty spot on the center of the floor. One could actually get in the forklift and drive it around if they needed to.
Woohoo!
So, that's pretty nice. So, anyways, it's exciting. I'm so ready to move into a new space and to get a new machine. Those are two things that we need desperately as a company to go to the next stage.
Yep.
And it's been a fun ride so far, but I want to pursue automation hard and get work off my plate and have it be as automated as possible. So we'll see.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do the thing. Oh, actually, before I do the thing, if you are a small business that makes a physical product or makes physical products as part of a service, and you want to promote yourself on our podcast, you can do so for free by sending me a message. We will gladly show your business as a community service. I only have 4 more hours left until I've paid out my sentence, and then no, I'm kidding. No, yeah, like all ships rise to the tide or whatever. So yeah, we'll gladly support you. Shoot me a message. We will give your company a shout out. I make absolutely no guarantees, but I'm sure it's better than nothing. And now, music.
All right, guys, it's that time of the show where we let you go. And we appreciate you hanging out for this journey through our shop lives. I ask that you please like and share and tell all your friends. So Also, I should say, feel free to reach out to either one of us. We enjoy hearing from you guys in the community. I personally love to get messages on Instagram from you guys, and I love hearing some of your stories and answering questions. So feel free to reach out. This is Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, signing out with AJ from Design the Everything.
I'm going to go make carabiners.